How's it going, everybody? Resident Evil Village has officially come and gone. And if you didn't get the chance to watch it, and you're just watching this as a review to see if you would like to play the game yourself, I played through the entire game, put it up on my channel, which you can view the entire playlist from the link right here, right there. I'll put it right here for you guys so you can see it. Click on it, watch it. I really appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet. But overall, my experience with this game was amazing. I'm kind of new to the horror genre of games. I've always loved watching them, but playing them myself has never been my thing. But this one I thought would be a kind of a fun intro for a full Let's Play series for my channel, and I wanted to record it and see how scared I got. And it was just, for me, not playing these games often, this one was so amazing. I have so many great things to say about it. A few little issues here and there, which we will talk about in this review video here. So let's get into it. First off, this game was absolutely stunning. Just visually so nice. From the village area, like the hub area, which is super cool, just to all the different places you go. Everything was so unique. They all had their own special things, like their own special puzzles, their own special gameplay mechanics. The gameplay mechanics were different in every area you went to. Just so much to get into with all of this. So let's, you start out in your own house, which is just a beautiful looking house, by the way. And then you get taken away by Chris, and then you end up on the outskirts of the village at night after a crash, and you start walking into the village, and it's right from there. It's just you just get that feeling that village is something's not right there. But anyway, then from the village you go into Castle Dimitrescu. Just the castle, and yes, of course, the big lady herself is there. Anyway, but it's just a huge, cool-looking castle. So many places to go. A lot of different rooms, different corridors, different hallways. There's a dungeon area you go into. It's so, like, that was a good intro to the game. Really strong start. It's just that old-timey, you'd almost think of it like an old-timey, like Game of Thrones type castle or something. Just old-timey, really cool looking, so much to see. It's you get that feeling of dread as soon as you walk in there that something's gonna come and get you, and that's the thing with this map. This map special, kind of special mechanic is you're being followed around by Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters, which, I mean, of course, compare that to Mr. X and Nemesis from 2 and 3 respectively. It's just, that's just a really cool mechanic. I felt like this game didn't overdo it with the sneaking parts, which I really appreciated because I'm not a huge fan of those type of games. But yeah, just a great way to start, and the story there was really good and just really cool. And then, of course, from there, you go down to the second of the 4 lords of the village, and that's House Beneviento. That House Beneviento was my personal favorite. This one had more of a Outlast-y type feel to it. No weapons, just survival, puzzle solving, a few runaway sequences from a big scary fetus thing, which was creepy as hell. But it's just the aesthetic of that house was my favorite. I told my friends it reminded me of a house you would imagine going in, like you'd imagine in a horror movie. Kids who are going away on a camping trip for the weekend would be in that. Like, that's the house they would stay at. It just had that feel to it. There was no music. And it was just, from the second you even approached the house, when you got into that fog, and you see like the hanging dolls, and there's dolls all over the house, and then not to mention the baby, and then it's a ventriloquist dummy who's the boss there. It was so unique, so cool. And I think it was easily the scariest section of, like, I shouldn't say scariest, because it was all scary in its own way, which I will describe later on. But this was the most like horror game type feel in this area. And then it was, because Lady Dimitrescu's castle was, a lot of sneaking around and, a lot of fighting. There's like down in the dungeon and stuff, you had to fight off the creatures that were there. And this one had no fighting whatsoever, other than the end when you just stabbed Angie, the ventriloquist doll, like 3 times. But, mainly a puzzle area. So it was nice little change of pace to go into the rest of the game. But by far, this one, I think this was their showing, because I don't think that they really wanted to I don't think they really wanted this game. I think this was a way of showing they can still do good horror, but just full on horror wasn't the direction they wanted to go in this game, and that's perfectly fine. I think I'll touch on that a little bit more later, but I just wanted to mention that House Beneviento. If you're looking for a scary game, watch that part of my playthrough because that was like the most horror-filled part. And then moving on to Moreau's Reservoir, just a big open lake area. You use a boat to get around, which I thought was really cool. You had some puzzles to get to the Suez Gate. I don't even remember what it was called. I can never pronounce it right anyway. But you were able to drain it, and then you're able to explore new areas of that section of the game. That was kind of it didn't really have a like a scary part of it. I didn't think. You were just trying to avoid the giant fish there from eating you, and basically it's just don't touch the water when he's near. That was the only way that you're able to get eaten. So in reality, it wasn't really scary, but just the size of it and, just the coolness of the boat and, kind of the other puzzles there were pretty fun. Like you had to pull these 3 switches to raise the dock up in order to get across the water. Otherwise you'd get eaten, and trying to figure out which ones you pull when and stuff like that was really cool. So that area was I think it was the weakest part of the game in my personal opinion. But overall, like still a really cool area, really visually stunning, and I liked it for that reason. The boss fight was pretty fun too. And then after that, you move on to the Stronghold, which was just basically a Lycan arena. You fought a bunch of Lycans in order to get the flask containing another part of Rose. You got to fight the giant Lycan boss, Urias, who you can see in my thumbnail for my first video of the series. That was really cool. It was a really intense, action-filled area, which it was kind of, you could tell that's when the game started to kick into high gear in the action side of it. And then from there, you move on to Heisenberg's factory, which was so cool. So it was just on a grand scale, just huge. Really liked it. It brought you into like a tech mechanical type feel, because that's what a lot of the enemies were. They were experiments that he put these mechanical pieces on with reactors, and it was really cool. Like the enemies were tough and they were super fun, I thought. And it got super action heavy, but it still didn't like move away from the horror, because there was a little bit of some certain jump scares and good situations when you just weren't expecting it. And I thought that was really cool. But Heisenberg's factory was super. It was a fun one. I had a lot of fun there just because of all the stuff you can do, and how big it was in such a large scale, and you go back and forth to try to find different things. It was really cool. So if I'm grading, because the Stronghold isn't technically one of the main areas, it's basically the precursor to going to see Heisenberg to move on with the story. But if I'm ranking, I'm going House Beneviento, because that one was just above and beyond creepy as hell, and I loved it. I would say Castle Dimitrescu and Heisenberg's Factory are tied. I got to give a little bit of a nudge to Castle Dimitrescu, not because of her, but I just really like that old style castle feel. And then obviously I think Moreau's Reservoir was last. It just wasn't. I don't know. It was, like I said, it was cool, but it just didn't quite do it for me. And then having the village as your main hub area, I really liked that. After every section of the game, you go back there and you got another key and you found some other items, or there was a boss that took out a door, and you're able to explore more of the village hub area every time you went back. And I thought that was really cool. And the aesthetic of the village was super sweet. That's the first thing you see, and you got the old lady, kind of speaking ominous tongue to you, and it was really, really creepy. A really creepy place to start, and I thought it was really cool. And then each area, the bosses were unique. Like you never felt like you were fighting the same boss over and over again. I thought that was really, really cool. So moving out of that part, and now getting into how I felt about the game and gameplay as a whole. A lot of times horror games have a tendency, I feel like, to get a little bit stale almost. But this one, never. I was never bored. I never felt like it was too much of one thing. I thought the pacing was really, really good. And I'm kind of noticing a trend in horror games that I've seen. And some games don't do this, and I'll get into that here in a second too. But I think horror games, like, they start you out. It starts out really, really scary. And this one was kind of in that way. Like when you crash the van, and then you end up in the village at night. Then you get out of there, and you meet real humans, and then tragedy strikes there, which obviously is just Ethan Winters, of course. Everything happens bad to him. You had a little section with when you met all 4 of the lords, and you had to run away from them, and there was some cool action sequences there, trying to run away from Heisenberg and get free. And then you end up in the castle, and the castle is just scary in the way of just having, she's there somewhere, and everything you do, you feel like you're going to make too much noise and she's going to come try to find you. And I thought that was really, really cool. And then it goes into House Beneviento, and then after that it gets more action heavy. I think Moreau's Reservoir is like kind of the turn point of where it went out from horror scary game into action. And that's kind of how horror games do it, because it's just horror all the way through it. I think it's just a little bit too much. And I'll use Outlast as an example, because that game, it's so much just run, run, hide, 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 run, run, hide, hide. It's just, it almost gets to be a little too much when it's just scare after scare after scare after scare. So I think the way that Resident Evil does it, and they did the same thing back in 7, when it started, like, it's just starting out super scary, giving you that feel of the horror game, and then stepping it back as you go on, I thought was really, really cool. So, and I thought it was paced perfectly. So I would give that a thumbs up for sure. And and you never felt like you were safe throughout the entire game. Like you always had that feeling that there was something that was going to get you. Like even in Moreau's Reservoir, which, like I said, I didn't care for all that much outside of visually and stuff like that, the boss fight. But like as you were running, like there's like fallen pieces of building over the water as your bridge, and you start running and you feel everything start to shake, and you hear him start talking, the fish, and you're like, shit, I gotta get going. And it's that type of scary, like there's always. And then obviously, like I mentioned, in Heisenberg's factory, like there's like enemies that jump out of the wall and stuff like that, and they still try to get you. So it was a horror survival through and through, but I feel like there was a little too little bit of horror. I wish they kind of would have put more of it throughout the game. I mean, House Beneviento, like I said, I think that was their strongest point from a horror standpoint. And like I said before, I think House Beneviento was their way of saying, like, look, we can still do scary. We can still do horror. We know what we're doing, but that's just not the way we wanted to take this game. And that's fine. And like I said, they never abandoned being a horror game. And I thought that was really nice. And like I said before, I really enjoyed getting back to the village every time, just to see kind of what was waiting there for you when you got back. You talk to Duke a little bit. You find another key to add on to your key. And it just gets, basically, you have one key throughout the entire game, and you just keep adding on to it. Section by section. So I thought that worked out pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool too. And there was always new things to find. Like you get the well wheel, you could, crank up the well, you got a bunch of items to sell. You got weapons there. When you had to fight the giant wolf thing, you got a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher to fight him with. So there was always something waiting for you back in the village, and it was never the same place every time. It expanded. And I thought that was really really nice. And I would describe this as a really smart game, and I'll describe what I mean by smart. And because this kind of goes in with every time you go back to the village for something new. But one of the things that I'll bring up is in Heisenberg's factory, you find a key mold. Like it's a key that you can use on Heisenberg's doors, and there's two of them. One of them pushes the story along, but the other one, as I saw the key mold, I'm like, wait a minute. There was a door back 2 levels down that had this key on it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go use that. So I go to the molder, I mold the key, and I head back down to the door. And as I go through a corridor, like a wall breaks, and here comes 2 giant enemies. And when you go back into the town, like you go on a new path, you're like, oh, I can use this key here. And you go down the new path, and there's a new enemy waiting there for you. So I thought it was really smart, as in like they knew, like they would give you something, and like you'd be like, okay, I'm going to go back to this other place I have been and use this. And they would stop you, of course. And they would have something there waiting for you to make sure that you were just on your toes. And I think that's kind of part of what I said about horror going all the way, scary parts going all the way through the game with jump scares. Like they always had something waiting for you. You never felt safe. And I think that makes a really good horror game. As, another thing that I've noticed in most horror games, especially Resident Evil games, is puzzles. And I thought all the puzzles in this game were solid. I really I don't know, I liked shooting the bells when I couldn't find a lot of them. I thought that was really fun. Like those type of things I think are really cool. It's a nice little like step back from the scary parts, because normally during the puzzle there's not many enemies that are trying to get after you. I feel like something they really improved on in this game from Resident Evil 7 was the buying system. In Resident Evil 7 you found antique coins, and there wasn't many of them, and that was the only way you could upgrade stuff. And I don't even think you could upgrade weapons unless you found parts, or maybe there was something with the coins too. I don't really remember, but I think the buying system was really cool. I liked being able to, which I wish I'd have known to save money because I got to Heisenberg's factory and there was 2 more guns I could have bought, and I was kind of disappointed that I had to wait a little longer to miss that because I kind of just blew all my money on stuff because I didn't think I was gonna need to buy anything else. But also being able to sell all the cool items you find. I really liked finding all the items so I could sell them and just see that money grow and then just spend. I thought that was really cool. One of the things that I kind of going along with the buying system, I didn't really care for having no storage crate. In 7, there's a storage crate in all the save rooms, and I was kind of hoping for that. But in this one, I feel like they might have just made the backpack a little bigger, I guess I would say. But I don't know. You still run out of room, and it's nice to conserve room just in case. I didn't like really having to, so like in order to store it, you'd have to sell it, which you could buy it back, but still it just feels kind of cheap that you got the weapon, you had to sell it, and the only way to get it back is to buy it from him again. But I also think with the way the thing was, there was really only like 5 weapon types. There was a Magnum, which you didn't even get another type of Magnum. That was the only thing you got. The Wolfsbane, which was a really awesome gun. Like, nothing wrong with that. Grenade launcher, which was the same. But then it was just pistol, shotgun, sniper. And really the only ones you got multiple of were the pistol and the shotgun. So I guess in reality, when you buy another shotgun, you don't need the old shotgun. But it's still nice. Just as me, I'm kind of a sentimental type guy. It'd be nice to not have to sell and just be able to kind of keep things and stuff like that. So, that part of it I wasn't really big on. I didn't really care for that. But and then cooking. Seems like all games are going to cooking these days, and I like it because it gives you, it's just another mechanic that's kind of fun. You can upgrade your health, and I just thought that was really, really cool. Just a nice little feature to toss in there, a different way of upgrading your base stats, which I thought was really cool. But speaking of cooking, there was one point I wasn't able to get the movement speed because I didn't have enough fish. I found out that I missed fish in one of the previous areas. So to me, that one was kind of a bummer. The fact that you couldn't revisit the old areas. Like, you could go back near Castle Dimitrescu. You actually had to go back there to find one of the treasures that you can, one of the gold chests you can find on your map. But I didn't really care for not being able to go back to those areas, especially since I know I missed items. So I might have to go back and, kind of play it again in order to get more of those items. But the more I thought about it too, as I was typing up this review, I think maybe that's part of their plan. Is, like, they wanted you to like really take the time to soak in their environment, and by soaking in the environment, you can find the items. And I think that was kind of their point. Plus, adding replay value to the game. Like, oh, I really want to completionist this, so I'm gonna go back and play it again. And then they give you more like difficulty levels and that type of stuff. So the replay value in this game is really, really good. And like right after you beat the game, you get another menu, and you can spend credits to buy guns, like different guns. You can get a freaking lightsaber. You can get infinite ammo on your guns. You can buy like character files and stuff. So it's I like having like the post game store, and then you can load up on stuff and make your next playthrough easier. And there is New Game Plus as well, so you can carry all your stuff over. I don't know if that counts for like collectibles and stuff like that. Like the goats, I missed a bunch of those. I know. I don't know if it counts for those necessarily. Overall, I really think that the replay value for this game is going to be huge. I know I definitely, once I kind of settle down from playing it the first time, I want to go back and play it again, a couple more times maybe even. I thought that'd be really cool. Now, something that's a little bit controversial that I would like to get into, the character of Ethan Winters. Now, throughout my playthrough, I talked about how much I like Ethan. At first I would call him a tank. He's a tank. He can take all damage, which at the end of the game, you find out the reasoning for why that is. Obviously, we all knew there was some reasoning how a guy can lose a hand, dump some juice on his arm, put it back on, and his sleeve even gets fixed, and everything's fine. Like, you find out there's things with that. But I'm just kind of, like, a lot of people say they think he's a shitty character just because there's no development there, which is true. But I just love how there doesn't have to be any development. I think in the lore, he's like an accountant or something. But, like, he's just such a badass. Like, something happens, and he just doesn't even flinch. Like, in the last game, he sees the mom who turns into, like, this weird spider ant thing, and he just goes, well, that's special. And, it's just, and then, like, in this one, when you're at Moreau's, he's about to walk over, like, the fallen shrapnel to get across, and the fish jumps. He's like, I don't want to be fish food today, he says with a little chuckle, So I just, I like his character. I really do. I'm going to pause right here just for spoilers. So if you're still watching and you want to see to the end of the video, just plug your ears. I'll give you 2 seconds. All right, if your ears aren't plugged, that's your own problem. When he died at the end, I actually almost shed a tear. I think you can see that in my playthrough too. I got pretty emotional because I don't know, I liked him as a character. So that's yeah. So I mean, I would like to know what your guys' thoughts are on Ethan. Let me know in the comment section down below. But overall, I think, like I said, I think this game has amazing game of the year potential. I really, really do. I'm excited to see what they do with like DLC because I'm sure there will be some. I'm excited to see where the story goes now with what happened at the end of the game. But I'm a big story guy when it comes to video games, and this story really had me hooked. I've been a fan ever since 7. I wanted them to carry on with Ethan and his story. So that had me hooked. I thought the gameplay, gunplay, exploration, everywhere you were, I thought everything was done really, really well. I didn't want to stop playing because I just needed that feeling of like, where is this game gonna take me? Like, where am I going with this? And like, you never knew what was next, and I liked that. I really, really did. And then, I mean, obviously, it's a game that encourages you to explore. I finished it in like 10 hours, but I think if you really want to go, you could probably 15 hours you could spend exploring everything, and I would do that. I tried my best even to make sure I explored as much as I could, and I still didn't even find all this stuff. Again, not as scary as I was hoping for the Resident Evil game. Not being able, like I said, not being able to make return trips and stuff, I thought was kind of disappointing, and and having no storage system was a bummer. But those things are outweighed by the good so much. And I really, really like this game. I'm going to give it an official score here out of 10. I mean, I don't know. I feel like 10 out of 10 is really hard to do in this day and age because, like, that's just like a next level type of video game. That's like what Red Dead Redemption was. That game was so universally loved. Or back in the day when Grand Theft Auto 5 first launched, that game was huge. Like, that game got a lot, got high scores just because it was so, 3 characters, big open world map, really cool. So for this one, I feel like giving this an 8.75 out of 10 is fair. And if I'm the developers and I see that score, I'm proud because I know I made a real gem of a game. So that's all I got for you for this review video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the game overall. Like I said, remember to check out the playlist. I'll have it linked at the beginning of the video. I'll link it in the description as well. I'd really appreciate if you guys give that a watch, give it a like. I worked really hard on it, and I really want people to see it because I feel like it turned out pretty well. And subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys on the next video, whatever I decide to do. So have a good one.